Okay, so again, March 25th, 1948 occurred 12.5 miles northeast of Aztec, New Mexico. And this is one of those cases, Richard, where civilians got to the site prior to the military.
Mhm.
And this thing came down at about a 10-degree angle, almost perfectly intact. 99.9 feet in diameter, almost exactly 100 feet in diameter. It
Mhm.
has an upper dome and a lower dome. The upper dome is slightly larger in diameter than the lower dome. And along the outer circumference of the disk, there are six 16-inch diameter portholes that are circular in shape that have a kind of a polished mirror image finish, almost like Michael Jackson's glasses, those mirrored glasses that he would wear.
Mhm.
That's almost precisely what these porthole windows look like.
Mhm.
So we're talking about something that has an aluminum exterior finish. Okay, so let's get into scene number one.
Right.
Is again, the civilians who are the four oil workers, they got there before the military. And when they got there, they climbed up the ridge of this craft and were walking toward the center dome of the craft itself. So that's essentially scene number one. And when they got there, they noticed a small hole in kind of one of the porthole windows. It was cracked and it had a small quarter-shaped hole. So they climbed off the disc itself, went back to their oil field truck. They pulled out a long pole, crawling back over the rim of the disc toward the center dome. They stuck this pole through that quarter-shaped crack or hole in the window, and they were jiggling this stick around. And somehow, I don't know how, but somehow they activated a button, and that opened up an entry hatch on the bottom of the craft, and that's how they gained access into the craft itself.
Right.
When they got into the craft, what they found on the upper deck or upper level were two alien bodies that were slumped over on control consoles. They were about 4.5, maybe 5 feet tall. They had gray bodies,
Mhm.
almost like they were scorched from decompression. That's something that Scott told me. They had one-piece, tight-fitting blue flight suits, and they were in front of these control consoles. And then he also said that there was alien iconology written on the inside wall of the upper dome. And what
Right.
also Scott mentioned too is on level 2, which is the rim of the craft itself, there was what looked like compartmented sections that were divided off, and there was another 14 dead bodies found in that section for a grand
Mhm.
total of 16 dead corpses. You'll see a top view looking down of the bodies being laid out on the desert floor, and then you've got a minister giving last rites to these bodies. We know that the military was on site at the time. There was a congressman present, and then at least 2 police officers and at least 2 fire personnel also in this particular scene. When the Baptist minister went back to his parishioners, he sat them down and said, "You are never going to believe what I just saw." He told them the whole story. He interviewed the last surviving parishioner who confirmed the minister's account. When the military got access to the inner portion of the disc, they found that the whole thing was fastened by a particular type of a pin device. When
Mhm.
they deactivated that pin device, the whole thing divided in 3 equally segmented pie segments. So you've got the central column, you've got the upper and lower dome, then you've got these equal segmented 1 by 1/3 pie segments. At this point, they were about, I'd say about 80 yards away because you couldn't get right toward the craft. They extended these cables, they wrapped them around these pie segments, and they drug these pie segments across the lower brush toward the M25 tank transporters. That's how they got it out of the immediate crash site. And then the whole thing was sent to Los Alamos for review, for reverse engineering, probably try to piece it back together. So in a nutshell, that's the Aztec crash retrieval story.